Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Friday the 23rd of July 2021 and we're publishing our regular morning update where we look at the latest news headlines, economic reports and precious metal prices. Today we see equity markets rising for a third day in a row and more than making up Monday's 2% fall. Today we also see gold and silver prices creeping back up. So let's take a look. Well, good morning, and once again it is a bright sunny morning and it's 8:16 GMT plus 1. Quite a lot to cover in the headlines today, so we shall run through these as quickly as we can, but two important areas to look at. Main headline on Bloomberg: Pfizer shot halts severe illness, allows infections in Israel. We won't go into this, but needless to say, COVID-19, Delta variant, increasing infections. This is the backdrop of most of the news right across the world. However, we want to spend a little more time on UK retail sales surged with spending for football matches and the ECB's opposition London job market Russia rate decision. And Lagarde says ECB has learned from history, won't tighten early. So if we take a quick look at the UK retail sales, and this is important because the pound sterling is in the basket of currencies against which the dollar is compared, and therefore what does happen in the UK, and therefore the price of sterling does have an impact on the dollar too. Not to mention, of course, the intra-country trade between the two nations. I'll just read a very small part of this, not in any depth. UK retail sales surged unexpectedly in June as consumers spent more in grocery stores to celebrate European Championship football, adding momentum to the economic recovery. The volume of goods sold in shops and online rose 0.5% from the month before. The Office for National Statistics said on Friday. Economists had expected a 0.1% drop. The figures followed an unprecedented jump in April, when most stores were allowed to fully reopen for the first time since January. The figures feed the debate about the strength of Britain's recovery from 17 months of restrictions to control the virus. Pent-up consumer spending has driven up prices across the economy, lifting inflation, this is important, above the Bank of England's target for the first time in almost 2 years in each of the past 2 months. Policymakers, led by Governor Andrew Bailey, are considering whether to pay back their stimulus as soon as next month. Now that is important, of course, because of the value of sterling. What's happening in Europe? Well, ECB opposition, London job market, Russia rate decision, Echo Day. Quite a few headlines here. We'll run through them quickly. Happy Friday, Europe. Here's the latest news and analysis from Bloomberg Economics. Bundesbank President Jens Weidmann and Belgian Governor Pierre Wunsch opposed new European Central Bank policy guidance that signals a longer period of record low interest rates, according to officials familiar with the matter. Christine Lagarde promised the ECB has learned from the errors of the past crisis and won't derail the economic recovery by withdrawing emergency support too early. Bloomberg Economics' Tom Orlick thinks the next step will be an increase in asset purchases at the September meeting. Crucially important, because then you have to compare how the United States will respond to that. Because we'll have an ever-strengthening of the dollar unless the US does something similar, and that in turn will adversely affect the price of gold and silver. London's job market has sprung back to life, becoming a hotspot for the first time since the pandemic closed. The British government is rolling out daily COVID testing to allow workers in critical services in England to avoid self-isolation, amid concerns that mass staff shortages are threatening crucial supplies. People have been having this app on their phones telling them to self-isolate because they may have been come in contact with people who've had COVID. And this has caused enormous problems, logistical problems, with people having to stay at home when they're required at work. And so the government is changing its policy. The Bank of Russia may increase interest rates by the most since the ruble crisis in 2014 as it struggles to contain surging inflation. How often have we heard that Russia has bought so much gold, so much, dumped the dollar, that its ruble is now safe? Well, doesn't appear to be the case. That doesn't mean its buying of gold was a bad idea. Perhaps it hasn't got enough. But we all think of Russia as this great superstate, when in reality, it is really now a second-rate economy. During the second half of this year, China's central bank will lower the amount of money banks have to keep in reserve once more, and economic growth will also slow down. Not good news. Not good news for silver. If China's economy slows down, then the industrial demand for silver will do likewise. Global goods trade remains a bright spot for a world where more economies are battling an abrupt revival of COVID cases and deaths, and fresh lockdowns and restrictions in Asia, brought on by the Delta COVID variant, are making the region's pursuit of travel bubbles look increasingly fruitless. General UK news. Food workers, we just mentioned this, given exemption from COVID isolation. Euro 2020 boosts food and drink retail sales. Interesting comment here. Spacing out Pfizer COVID jabs gives antibody boost, suggesting that a longer period between the first and second injection actually helps. Thinking cities from parklets to French boulets. Developments like parklets reflect the permanent ways the pandemic is changing our spaces. And I think that's broadly it there. In terms of the United States, main headline, as you can see within the BBC, did the US fund risky virus research in Canada? This is a dispute, if anyone saw it, when Fauci and Senator Paul, had quite a ruckus between them. Shooting Rock's restaurant not far from the White House. Cuba sanctions just the beginning. And US border agents seize 15 giant snails, which apparently we smiled when we saw it, and then we saw that these snails destroy local ecosystems and can cause meningitis in humans. Ah, those French escargots. Delicious, hey? Delicious. I think not. Being British, we don't like escargot, although there are some exceptions. But they're very European, you know. Okay, US dollar, just having a game. 92.88, up 0.06. Trying to get back to that 93 level, not quite making it. Energy, oil prices, very little change. 71.85 for WTI crude, 73.76 for Brent. They're going to keep in the 70s for a while, we suspect. Markets, yesterday again another rise for the American markets, albeit relatively small. Up 25 for the Dow, up 8 for the S&P, and up 52 for the Nasdaq, all less than 0.5%. Asian markets overnight, broadly up. Well, two of the main ones up. Hang Seng, though, down 1%. And this morning, actually now we're open for trade. And this morning we can see the Euro Stoxx index is up almost 0.4%. FTSE up just over half. So is the DAX and so is the CAC index. So maybe today will be a good day for shares. Looking at economic reports. Yesterday the jobless claims came in and were disappointing. We're expecting 348,000 and it's actually 419. Though the continuing jobless claims figures have actually fallen marginally. Existing home sales, though, have increased, and the index of leading economic indicators are disappointing, although in positive territory, disappointing. Important today, market manufacturing PMIs and the market services PMIs, the flash PMIs. We'll have the full ones either the week after that. But basically, our economic news is mixed, isn't it? On the one hand, we think the economy's growing, retail sales are up, things are looking good. Then you look at the jobless claims and you see that they're rising. It does paint a rather confusing picture. So what's happened to gold? Well, we suspect, simply because of those figures, gold jumped $11 over the last 24 hours. Now, it's standing at $806 or nearly 80. Well, here we go. I've re-clicked it. It's refreshed. $1,807. Still down on the week's or last week's close, but now only by $6. It has been lower. It's been as low as $17.93. Looking at silver, silver too has jumped up 29 cents in the last 24 hours. But again, if we look at the week's figure, compared to Friday's close, it was $25.70. It's now $25.37. But still, frankly, operating within a relatively tight trading range. And finally, Bitcoin. Bitcoin's on a bit of a tear at the moment. Up $659 at 32,169. If I look at the live figure, though, we can see it's up. Let's have a look. The live figure's 32,459. What's the 24-hour? 32. So although it's showing it's marginally down, this is all to do with slightly different times from which it records its opening. Nevertheless, it was less than 29,500 only 3 days ago. That's it for now. Now, tomorrow we have our weekly update where we provide more in-depth information and also our forecast for the following week. So please don't miss that. Any comments you wish to make, more than welcome. And also, of course, please give this a thumbs up, subscribe, and press the bell sign. We won't produce another video today because we've noticed viewing figures on Friday generally are pretty dire, to say the least. Obviously, everyone's out enjoying themselves. So thank you for listening. Thank you for following. See you tomorrow. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.